lot of times I'm driving, there's nothing to do, and I shuffle through the radio before I unglue. There's a lot of red on ways, it's traffic, I'm screwed, and I'm wired a bit different than a regular dude. It's not a bad thing, I embrace it, it's true. The radio don't stimulate brain chemistry fluid. The Buddha found nirvana and the Four Noble Truths. Through a meditative process, right action he proved. For me, I require the use of a tool, a detector, pin, pointer, shovel, and beach scoop. I'm meant to work the dirt with my history crew, but everywhere I look, my interest taboo. Most people choose Bieber over Tippecanoe. What does a detectorist listen to when the radio is full of bad music and news? I need an alternative for me to peruse. Beyond Sight and Sound gets fantastic reviews. A metal detecting show where my thought bubble brews. Thank you, Josh Kimmel, for inviting me to a detecting dork out with guests like yours truly.
Are you looking for a high-quality beach and sand scoop? Are you trying to take your hunting to the extreme? How about an American-based company that stands behind their product and everything they sell? Then check out our friends over at XTREME Scoops. John has been making scoops for some time now and makes a quality beach and sand scoop to take your hunting to the next level. XTREME Scoops recently released their new sand shredder that works great in the water and on the beach. And if you're a new Equinox user, you may want to check out his Surfmaster X3 that can trap those small targets you new Equinox users are finding out there. XTREME Scoop's company approach is let's do it right. So do it right, buy it once, and go to the extreme. XTREMEScoops.com. That's XTREME scoops.com.
Caution. Please do not operate motor vehicles or power equipment while under the influence of this show. Listening to this show could cause side effects such as bouts of laughter, violent binges of cabin fever, and even dreams of silver and gold. Please be advised. Now that the fine print is out of the way, on with the show.
All right, the fine print's out of the way. It's time to roll with the show. We're back and we're live once again. You are listening to Beyond Sight and Sound, metal detecting and treasure hunting radio for all the really cool digging people out there. And tonight, some of us are definitely a little cooler than others. I mean, what is up with this? I mean, we're middle of April, and here in Ohio, it's in the forecast. I think tomorrow night we've got an 80% chance of accumulating snow. Something's just not right with this. Mother Nature has clearly missed the memo about nice weather. But hey, I can't complain. We'll get into why I can't complain here in a minute. But links in the description, obviously, first and foremost, our friends over at Shooters and Prospectors, DETECTEES.com, Ken, Mark, Darth, Buddy, and the gang doing a great job. XTREME Scoops, TheRingFinders, Detect Dead Outdoors, All Metal Militia, Ohio Metal Detecting on YouTube, the Swing Into Summer event for your updates on what's going on there, the Simplex raffle, the East Coast Research and Discovery Association beach hunt, seeding 44 pounds of silver into the beach, as long as COVID doesn't shut them down. Also, the link for Crazy Spider Adventures on YouTube. Shout out to Crazy Spider in the chat. See Mike, the Bills, Nelson, Craig, Spot On, Barb, Chuck. Quite a few people dropping in. The chat's just, I can't keep track of it already. And obviously I guess the most notable link to mention in the description and in the chat tonight is the link to another YouTube channel of Alaska relic hunters, which is why I can't complain about the snow and cold down here in Ohio. Because I'm not sure what it's like up there in Alaska, but I'm sure that it's probably much, much worse than what we're dealing with right now here. But we'll find out about that, because obviously you all have seen the post. I know people have seen the post. Good grief. I want to say analytics before the show shows that the post for tonight's show had a reach of about 5,000 people. So definitely going good there. And that also means that the link for the Alaska Relic Hunters on YouTube went across 5,000 people's screens. I think that means maybe they'll pick up a couple of subscribers. Maybe. We'll see what happens. No, I'm joking. Obviously, Bethany has been an absolute blast to talk to. We've had some glitches that I've had to work through here on my end tonight, so I don't know if we've got the call capability or not. We're going to hope we do. Either way, we're still going to trudge on, continue through, and try to put on as good and informative or entertaining of a show as we can. And I think that's everything I had to... Well, there is one other item to cover real quick. The Beyond Sight and Sound on the page on Facebook, not the Metal Detecting Beyond Sight and Sound group, but the Beyond Sight and Sound page, is very, very near the 1,000 likes mark that I was alluding to the other night. So today we did get some pictures of a very, very nice piece of silver that we will put up as a giveaway celebrating when we break 1,000 likes on the Facebook page. And it is a very, very nice piece. It's a 2004 AU, probably AU, Silver Eagle. So we'll get photos of that up in the very near future. But with being fashionably late anyway, I should quit running on, because you guys and gals in the chat did not tune in to listen to me. I'm sure you probably tuned in to hear what Bethany has to share with everyone. So let's get her in here first. How is it going, Bethany?
Hi, how are you doing?
Very good that I can hear you now, and hopefully the listeners can too.
Good. Going pretty good. We're actually, today is probably one of our warmest days all year so far. It's 48 degrees and raining.
I don't know. Call me a fair weather hunter or whatever. That's still too cold for me.
Well, it's nice. Right now I would rather have rain than snow, so I'm not going to complain.
Right, yeah. True enough. I have to agree with you there. I would rather have the rain instead of the snow, for sure. So obviously, you are on with us from Alaska. You actually, I believe you have the prestige of being the first guest on the show in all the years I've been doing this from Alaska. So this is a little different.
I feel very privileged. Feel privileged. Thank you very much.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for taking the time to sit down with us tonight, obviously. But for those who may not realize, I mean, take a minute and explain who you are, how you got into the hobby, and, maybe what it's like to deal with the Alaskan environment, because it is a whole different ball game up there.
Yeah, it is. Well, I guess to start off with, I was born and raised here in Alaska, in more of the interior Alaska, and grew up trapping and hunting and fishing with my dad. So I loved the outdoors anyway. That was something that just loved spending time outdoors. And so about 3 years ago, we totally stumbled across the relic hunting just by accident. And my husband and our kids, we decided we're not really into gold panning. My husband's done quite a bit more of that than I have. But we decided to hike into this location, and he kind of wanted to show the kids a little bit, see if we could mess around and get any gold. And we actually we didn't find any gold. But on our way back out, as we were walking through the woods, my husband saw a bottle sticking up out of the ground. And so he stopped and he said, wow, this looks like it's really old. And so we all kind of got sticks and started poking around, and we uncovered this massive bottle dump.
Very cool.
And ended up, the location had been a gold mine, started about 100 years ago or more. And so we kind of knew the history of the area, but we had no idea that so many miners had lived there. And the bottle dump was just massive. It took us probably 2 good seasons of summers up here. We still did not dig it all out. And there was a lot of avalanches and a lot of rock slides and things that made it hard to get in there. But we just couldn't believe, we had no idea really that things like bottle dumps had even existed. So that was just incredible for us. We pulled out carbide lamps from the miners and pocket watches. We found our first 2 coins in a pile of probably some old overalls or something. And so that was really fun for us to find that. And we just kept going back. And as we started researching, we started looking online and found out, people actually do this for a hobby. So we started looking into metal detecting, and that's when we bought our first detector and, started looking for relics.
So with the bottle dump and finding the first 2 coins and coveralls of coat or whatever, you didn't even have a metal detector at this point.
No, we didn't even have a metal detector. It was just purely accident. We became so addicted. We were up there every day. We had a free day. And when we first started, it was just insanity because we didn't understand trying to be careful about what we brought out. So our first summer, we took backpacks and 5-gallon buckets, and we hauled out every bottle and everything we could find. And didn't take us but a month, maybe, and we realized we're going to have a problem here if we haul out this entire dump. So we had to get a little bit more selective, and we really started trying to hone our research skills a little bit more at that point and figure out. That's when we started learning how to find dates for dating the bottles and, what was worth hauling out and what we should just leave.
So this was all kind of a new learning experience for you guys, and you kind of hit the ground running, so to speak, and learning along the way, knowing that, finding out that there were other people out there doing this sort of stuff. There's a lot of us out there. And then finding out the research, the resource materials. I got to buy a detector, a pouch, some digging tools, a pen pointer. Were you guys kind of going, man, are we doing this the right way? Are we falling further down the rabbit hole? This is kind of getting expensive.
Well, I think we just got addicted immediately. It was the treasure hunt. And so we were just so passionate and excited about it. And so we started off with the Garrett Ace. I think it was the 250 is the first one we got. And, not knowing at all how to use it, what to do, we started watching a lot of shows. I think that's when we found KG and Ringy and the Diggers show. And so we became obsessed with watching that and trying to figure out what we could learn. And then we found out that YouTube has millions of videos. And so we just started trying to learn and research and figure it out. We didn't even know when we first started, because it was an accident, we didn't realize we could research and find locations. So for us, that was an incredible next step when we started researching local history, and when we actually found our first relic site. Because of our research and our metal detecting, it was just this incredible experience to realize we actually found what we were looking for.
Right, and then to find all the YouTube videos and the realization that Facebook has hundreds of groups dedicated to this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. We had no idea that it was so big, that there were just thousands and thousands of people. And it's been really fun to be able to connect up with all these other people, especially because we are more remote in Alaska and there's a lot fewer people that do relic hunt and metal detect up here. I mean, some of it has to do with the seasons. We have a very short season, but it's just we don't have the population, and it's kind of a growing, developing thing, I think, up here.
Right. So in the obviously, I believe in the photo that we used for the episode tonight, it shows you with an AT Pro. So you upgraded from the Ace 250. Is that still what you're using?
Yeah, we are. We both have the AT Pros now, and I'm thrilled with it. My husband Jeremy, he started off with his. I think he maybe upgraded 2 years ago, and then this last summer, he got me mine for my birthday, and that was really good for me instead of always trying to share, or I got really frustrated using the older machine. It's just had a hard life. It's really difficult. It damages machines, and there's just more complications in Alaska. You're going through brush and water, and so, you know, I was having some issues with the older machine after all the abuse it had taken. So it was really nice to get a new machine, and the AT Pro has been great. We, when we took our trip over to the UK last fall, was the first time I really put a lot of hours on my machine, and everyone there was just great with helping me figure out a lot of things, because I was pretty new to figuring it out, using it, settings, all of that.
Right, which I guess is a great point to mention. You're not just into metal detecting.
Yeah, no, I guess my husband and I just really love history. It's a passion, actually something I got from my mom, and she was always passionate about it. And so I always grew up loving history. Actually, my first relic hunt happened when I was 8. And I thought about this later after we started. My dad had taken me out on a trapping weekend with him. We had gone beaver trapping, and he would always stay in these old trappers' cabins. And so while he was out trapping, I just kind of hung around this old cabin that was from the early 1900s. And you know, as a kid, I happened to stumble across an old trash pile, and digging through it, found an old leather boot, kind of interested. And I found this graniteware coffee pot with a wooden handle, one of the older styles, and just fell in love with it. So that was kind of still to this day, my favorite finds is probably the enamel or the graniteware, just because that was my very first find. But took that back to my mom, and she was just thrilled. She put a plant in it, and so I felt, you know, I'd found treasure. But so, you know, that's kind of the thing, is always just loved history and loved antiques. I've always just loved the piece of life that people had before. So we're kind of broad in what we do, just metal detecting, and my favorite is probably bottle dumps. I just kind of love looking through that piece of people's lives and the personal things. That's what really means a lot. One of the really personal things we found, we were in a bottle dump and we pulled out cold cream, and there was actually still, it was from the 1930s or 40s, I think, and there was still cream in the bottom, and it had the very distinct, like, fingerprints of, like, a small woman's hand that had gone through the cold cream, and you could still see it because the lid had been intact until we pulled it out. And something about that was so personal, it was almost to the point of tears, just that these people were dead and gone, and here was these fingerprints left in this.
Wow. Definitely interesting. And while you were over in the UK, you even got to try your hand at some mudlarking.
Yeah, that was really enjoyable. We definitely would love to go back again. We went out with a couple different people, and we went out by ourselves on the Thames River. And the first day, well, we went out with Sci-Finds, and I don't know if the viewers have watched his channel, but he's got great videos. He's a mudlark there, and
yes, he does.
Really knows what he's doing. So he took us to a great spot to mudlark, and we found some really great stuff from the late 1800s, early 1900s. And so that was, really fun to be able to get out there and do that. And then also while we were in London, we went out on some low tides ourselves and, just use some caution. We did a couple nighttime mudlarks, which we found some cool pipes, and a lot of really cool history there.
Oh, absolutely, and it goes so far back, but, I mean, when you're over there mudlarking, you've got to be careful and watch those tides. They'll sneak up on you.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that have gotten caught out there. You have to be really cautious and just watch the tides. Don't get locked into what you're doing. And, the history is really old. For us going over there, it was a lot of times we didn't even know what we had found because the coins or, everything that we found, we would take back and try to do a research and figure out Google. What is this even? Is this even worth anything? How old is it? So it was an incredible experience. We really fell in love with England and the people over there. It was just a great, great time. Especially we spent about 12 days with the metal detecting holidays in Shropshire. And just a great experience. Really great people, great accommodations, and had a great, great time. Great group of guys over there with us. So
nice. Well, and it's always handy to be able to do that with some of the locals. Then they can help a little bit when you find something and you're like, I don't know what this is. Is it a good find? Is it old? What is it? Somebody tell me.
Yeah, and that was the thing, like with the mudlarking, they have different rules than with the metal detecting as far as what you can keep and what you can't keep. So with the mudlarking, if, first of all, you have to actually have a permit, and you pay for your permit ahead of time so that through the port authorities, you can legally go down and mudlark. But with the mudlarking, anything that's 300 years or newer, unless it's more than 10% of silver or gold, you can keep that. So, that's a lot easier for us, especially being in Alaska. Something from the 17 or 1800s is so old, and, really surprised us that something from that time period was fine for us to bring back with us.
Right. What was the oldest item you found while you were over there?
Well, the oldest thing that we found were the coins, but those are metal detected, and so they have different rules. Those actually have to go through the fines liaison officer and
Exactly.
be cleared, make sure it's not treasure before it's taken out.
Right.
So, but the oldest coin that I found while we were metal detecting was a late 1600s, a silver, and it was a love token, 6-pence.
Oh, wow.
And
very cool.
So,
good job.
Very, very cool. Actually, the only silver I've ever detected. And someday, when all that's settled through and we have that, I would love to have that made into a necklace or something, just because it's a very personal. There again, I love the personal pieces, and finding it worn off and bent into a love token, for me, that's just the coolest sign.
Right. Not to mention a great souvenir from your trip abroad.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And Jeremy, when he was detecting, he found a quarter cut hammered, and that's the oldest we found. And because it was a quarter cut coin, we weren't actually able to tell a date or specifically what coin it was. But, they're guessing 1500s, something like that. So that was probably our oldest find ever.
Wow. Very cool. Very cool. And there again, a whole different environment than Alaska. So you guys were learning all sorts of new experiences.
Oh, yeah. It was really, well, we had a great group of guys too. Nugget Noggin, Michael Bennett was over there with us. It was actually kind of his tour he set up. And so he's got great videos too for folks who want to go watch some great metal detecting. So he had gotten a group of guys together that they all had a lot more experience detecting than my husband and I. So it was just really great learning experience. They were all really great about showing us things with our machine, helping us find the hard to find signals. And it was a lot of fun because it was just nice fields, and it was so easy to dig compared to Alaska.
That does bring up a good point. I mean, I'm assuming that you guys use pretty much the same thing that we do anywhere else in the States, but what are you using to retrieve your targets in Alaska?
Well, we have used pickaxes, we have used saws and shovels and hatchets. So there's just a lot of root mass and a lot of roots, a lot of brush. The brush is, sometimes you've got 16-foot tall, 20-foot tall brush you're trying to get through. And I know one of my last videos that I put on our YouTube channel, I kind of tried to show what we deal with the metal detecting up here. And that's part of the reason that when we got over to England, I really hadn't had a lot of experience with trying to find good targets with my detector, because we've kind of used them just as a way to find bottle dumps for right now, because it's so hard to get through. You can't just find one target a lot of times. So when we go out, we'll spend, a long time researching, try to find an area where we knew there was an old railroad campsite or an old mining site or cabin or something. And we'll just try to research and, figure out if it's state land, private land, get permission or whatever we need to do. And once we get out there, we could spend a day or two just trying to narrow down the location. I mean, everything's so grown over. The brush, just within one season, the brush can totally regrow an area that we've dug. So trying to get through it, and then once we find it, we've used our metal detectors just to kind of pinpoint like an area. And usually the detectors will pick up the top layer, which is more of your more recent tin cans and, you know, metal, iron, that sort of thing. So if we can find and kind of pinpoint a location like that, then it's easier for us to start digging down and be able to find if there's bottles or something else in that area.
That makes sense. Definitely makes sense. And we've heard what your oldest and, quite frankly, probably your favorite find from the UK was. What has been your oldest or favorite find from Alaska?
Well, the oldest find that we could say for sure was probably an Indian head coin that was in 1901.
Nice. And so the Indian head cents are even in Alaska. You can find them.
You know what? We were thrilled. We were so excited because it was the oldest coin we had ever found, and it was an area we spent like a whole day. It was on a mountainside that had been pretty much wiped out by snowslides and avalanches, but we knew there had been, in the early 1900s, there had been some sort of tent campsite before they put the railroad in. So we spent the whole day up and down through brush, steep hills, just detecting, trying to find anything, and pretty much came up with nothing. And then we hit this one area and dug a whole bunch of nails, and the only thing we got was an old spoon and this coin. And we were just so happy after the whole day, and then to find our oldest coin, we were just ecstatic.
Oh, yeah, I don't see any problem at all with that. I know we've got some listeners in the chat. I'm surprised they didn't get a little fired up about that, because we, some of the listeners have a little bit of an issue finding Indians. They come few and far between.
Uh-huh.
But that's kind of the way it goes.
Yeah, we were thrilled and to be able to get a date off of it, and it was in pretty good shape still. And it's really hard in Alaska because of the soil and all of that. Things deteriorate really quickly. It's very wet and marshy. So really to be able to find anything that is tin or metal in decent shape at all is just really nice.
Right. Well, yeah, and for that one to be in the shape that it was, definitely a good find.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, I mean, just to be able to find it was pretty startling because the avalanches, I mean, we found a few pieces of broken glass here and there, and we find so many tobacco tins. It's just insane. We just get so tired of just digging them because it must have been a big thing for the railroad. So, but to be able to find that, yeah, it's just a miracle we did.
Very cool. Definitely very cool. So, what prompted you to start your YouTube channel?
Well, I guess we were watching other people's videos, and I mean, we just loved to watch it. And when we would go out, at first when we started, my husband was so nice. He did all the hard digging and the hard chopping and labor, and then I would just sit there with a spade and go through it. And so I would, sit there with my camera, and I would want to get pictures or videos. And we kind of started videoing just for us because, just to document what we found, and we couldn't believe what we found. And then I thought, well, everybody started enjoying us putting pictures on Facebook. We started with our Facebook first. And so I just thought, why not? Let's put some videos out there. And first they were pretty rough. I was not sure what I was doing, but we're getting a little bit better.
Well, you learn as you go. And I know we've got a number of YouTubers in the chat, so I'm sure people are going to be curious to know what sort of cameras do you use and what sort of editing software do you use to put your videos up?
Well, I'll be honest, I just use my phone. I just have the iPhone X, and I just use a video shop app on my phone. We've talked a lot about trying to get a GoPro or, stepping it up or something, but for right now, I haven't had a lot of priority on all of that, and my phone it's just so easy. I can slip it in my pocket. I can pull it out and take a video, put it away, and so yeah, I just use my iPhone and the app I have on it, and so far it works.
Yeah, good. They do a very good job with video and still images, and apparently the software that you're using is working just fine. I've seen some of your videos myself, and they're very well done for what they are.
Yeah, well, it works, and eventually I'd like to maybe upgrade, but for right now, I think it's great, and it's documented what we've done, and that's kind of what it is to be able to save the history, let people experience it. I know there's a lot of people who can't get out and bottle dump dig and metal detect like we do and all that. And so, like, when we first started, just to be able to watch other people doing it was just so much fun. So, to be able to give that to someone, that's kind of what I want to do. And it's not going to be professional, but, hopefully it's good enough they can enjoy it. And, that's kind of what it's about.
Right. It's kind of done in your particular style.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, when you started the YouTube channel, I mean, because your channel is still relatively young in terms of some other YouTube channels out there, did you think that it would get to the point that it is now?
No, I really didn't even start it to try to build it. I honestly had no idea, that people will try to monetize and that, all of this. I had no idea that even existed when I started it. Well, let me see, last November, when we got ready to go to the UK, I was talking back and forth with Cy from Sci-Find, trying to get some ideas, and we arranged she was going to take us out mudlarking and all of that. And so he's really into the YouTube. He's really good at that. And so he said, for as much as you put out there, you really should have more than, I think I had 40 subscribers. And he said, you really should have more than that. You need to figure something out here. And so he gave me some really good tips. And then just collaborating, I spent the morning doing some detecting over there with Preacher Digger, and there's another fun detectorist that people might want to watch some of his stuff. He's got really cool stuff. I spent part of the day with Nugget Noggin, and then with our mudlarking friends. So the collaboration, to do something with them and to be able to get our name out through that really helped. So I'm kind of, surprised that since last November, we've added 600 more subscribers to our channel. And, that's cool. I like to see that, hopefully that's a good sign that people are enjoying what we're doing.
Absolutely. That's awesome in its own. That's quite an achievement to bring in that many subscribers in such a short amount of time. It's not easy for some people. But I'm sure, like you said, the collaboration definitely helped.
Yeah, definitely. And, I was really looking forward to some more collaborations this month. The beginning of April, I was supposed to go down to North Carolina and was going to go out with some other gals down there who detect, and was going to meet with Michael and another guy, Pete, that was with us in England. And we were going to go do hopefully looking for some Civil War stuff. But, the coronavirus kind of changed everybody's plans. So I guess that's going to be on hold.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's kind of got us all locked down, so to speak.
Yeah, that was disappointing. That was a big trip I had been looking forward to and planned. And plus, after coming out of 7 or 8 months of winter, I kind of get depressed a little bit. And the thought of going to a place where there was something green and living was very exciting for me.
Right. Maybe some sand that's not frozen.
Yeah, definitely. I was looking forward to just, being outside without a hat and gloves and all of that. But, it is what it is. So definitely just put on hold for another time and looking forward to it. I'd like to, meet up with different detectorists and do some more traveling. And it's just really good to get out there and meet people who have the same hobby.
Absolutely. And with Alaska being kind of sparsely populated, have you noticed a very big difference because of the coronavirus up there compared to, say, like New York's really getting hit with it, but some of the other states have really noticed a real lifestyle change, so to speak?
Well, we've had a real lifestyle change. We just have to take what the governor says and go with it, but it's definitely frustrating. Alaskans are kind of a different breed of people. They're kind of independent. A lot of people moved up here because the laws are a little bit more relaxed and there's a little bit more freedom. So it's been very frustrating for a lot of people because the governor, even though I think now we're only about 300 confirmed cases, and I think we're still only at 7 deaths. And they're not really sure they're entirely from the coronavirus. A lot of them were already had severe pre-existing conditions. But, the governor shut the state down. I've been laid off for 3 weeks, and he was pretty aggressive with it. And I know it's been frustrating for a lot of Alaskans, and a lot of people up here are just ignoring it and going on with life as much as they can because Alaskans are pretty much spread out anyway. It's just entirely different than a place like New York.
Right. For you, social distancing is a way of life, basically.
Most people up here are up here because they don't want to be close to other people.
Yeah, and that's clearly evident. In the figures that you had mentioned, because I know here in Ohio I think we're over 7,000 confirmed cases, and it's almost 300 deaths.
Wow. Okay.
Which is nowhere near as bad as some of the other areas, but still.
And that's what, it's a frustration for Alaskans right now according to numbers, I believe more people are actually dying from the flu right now in Alaska than from the coronavirus. So with this happening, it does frustrate people with losing their jobs and being shut down. And, we're really feeling an economic crisis up here, and we're so distanced from the rest of the state that it's just hard for a lot of people up here to really grasp what's going on.
Right. And I guess, obviously, you don't have to be, real exact on the location, but whereabouts in Alaska are you? Because it seems like you're kind of away from the more densely populated areas.
Yeah, we're about an hour away from Anchorage. We live kind of at the base of some mountains called Hatcher's Pass. So, yeah, I commute 20 minutes to work. My husband commutes probably 35, 40 minutes to work.
Wow.
But, it's pretty normal up here. People don't understand the distances. For us, if let's say we're going to go relic hunting, a lot of times we'll drive 2 or 3 hours one way just to get to a site. That's just normal.
Well, and we've got a caller on that I'm sure he knows very, very well about the distances and the environment up there in Alaska. How's it going, Chuck?
Pretty good, Josh. Bethany, how you doing tonight?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Real good, kiddo. Where were you born at? Where did you start out in Alaska at?
I was born in Glen Allen, and
okay.
I was actually raised on, I don't know if you know where Chitna is. I was grew up on the road to Chitna, so fairly remote, but.
Yeah, you were out there a ways, but
Yeah.
I started going up to Alaska, and the first time I went up was 1983. My wife's brother had moved up there, and we went up and visited him and ran around, and we were in Fairbanks. Of course, you got to go to the whole Smeal up there, and we dropped down to Anchorage, and then the next time we went up, Jill and I went up, we hung out with him for a while, then drove down. We had friends in Wasilla, and we stayed with Rick and Kathy there, and went on down all the way to Seward. And Seward's gorgeous. I mean, that's one of the most gorgeous spots you'll ever go to. And then I flew around with my brother-in-law. He married a gal that she was born and raised, but she was born and raised on Barter Island, all the way up north. Her dad was one of the early bush pilots, and then he formed an airline company called Audi Air, A-U-D-I, and it ended up being sold to Wien, and then it became Alaska Air. And I was able to fly around with Robert and see more of that state than a lot of people will ever have the chance that live in the 48, lower 48. And you are 100% correct. Alaska has its own identity. People go up there. A lot of them went up there to just get away from what's in the lower 48 and start a different life.
Yeah, and it's changed a lot over the years. My husband kind of laughs at me because I'm kind of still mentally stuck in the way it was in the 80s, when I was growing up. And, I can kind of get us in trouble sometimes because I'm just like, oh, no, it's okay. We can do this. And, oops, I guess they changed the law. We can't do that anymore.
Well, from the first time I was in Fairbanks to today, you wouldn't recognize it from then till now because it's so grown, and the military presence up there at Eielson Air Force Base and Fort Wainwright and all the other military setups up there is huge. People don't realize how big military is in Alaska.
Yeah, it is. And right now there's just a lot of people that come and go, and so it's definitely changed from when I was growing up. It was more of the old timers or the second generation of the original homesteaders. That's kind of how it was when I was growing up. I mean, when I was young, Wasilla had one stoplight and a few stop signs, and it pretty much instantly went to gravel roads, and it's huge now. It's just things. It's definitely grown up and changed.
Yes, it has, and I always told people if you ever have the chance, go there. There was, at that time, still a real taste of the last frontier. Rick and Kathy took us up to Talkeetna, and I fell in love with Talkeetna at that time. And it was a gravel road. You went back to Talkeetna Inn was there. I mean, the bush pilots pulled out of the driveway and took off down the main road. It was all gravel, and it was just, and all the great climbers went there. That was the jump-off point to go make their assault on Denali. And when we were in there the first time, the BBC was there. They had climbers from Britain. They brought their Sherpa with them, and it was just a feeling of excitement all the time. And then I'll tell this story to you. While we were there, we're in Talkeetna, and I'm seeing photographers, and they've got all the setup with these white shades and dark shades, and they're there. And while we were there, they were shooting the girls of Alaska for Playboy.
Wow.
That was unexpected.
Yeah, it was unexpected, but it was enjoyable. My wife, and they asked all the gals in town, they gave everybody in town, all the gals, a makeover. And they all got to sit in the inn, and they had all the gals up front, and they did a whole photo shoot. The girls got free drinks, free food, and all the men got kicked out. And there was faces in every window at every angle you could imagine watching them do that.
I'm sure.
Wow.
It was a great...
Yeah, well, you can still find that same, feel of Alaska. You just have to get further out. If you fly into Anchorage or Fairbanks, Wasilla doesn't have it anymore. But, if you don't have to drive very far to get out. And there's a lot of people that still want their independence and want to live off the land and more of that and live just kind of remotely. There's a lot of people. And for a few years, I lived without running water and electricity, and I did that, and, it was an experience, and I'm glad I don't have to do it anymore. But there's a lot of people that still like that. So.
Yeah, but you can still travel north of Fairbanks. You can go up the Steesa ways, and then you get back into that flavor of Alaska and go to places like, there's Circle Hot Springs, which became a huge tourist spot. They changed that from the first time I was there till the last time I was there a few years back and soak in the hot springs. But you going up to Circle and those type of places, and it's amazing. It really is amazing.
Yeah, you can still get out, and every summer, as long as the fish are still running, we take the family out to where I grew up at, and we have use of a fish wheel on the Copper River, just from friends that we grew up with, and it was grandfathered in, and it's just a great experience. I've been thrilled that I can still do that with my kids, and we can go out to fish camp and stay on the river for 3 or 4 days, and just enjoy that life, pull the fish out of the wheel and teach them how to clean them and process them. And it's still, if you want that life, it's still available here. You have to find it.
Right, now you have choices.
Definitely.
Yes. And the brother-in-law complains about the Californians moving into the area, and they want to turn it into California. Are you seeing something like that?
Well, I see more and more people that get really sick and tired of the long winters, and they're wanting to get out, including myself. So I don't really see them turning this into California anytime soon. There's a lot of people.
Well, I've made about 16, 17 trips up there over the years, and I've watched the change. And my brother-in-law keeps telling me, "You just come on up and stay a full year." And I said, "I have enough winter at home. Believe me, I don't need to come up there and experience 54 below zero in Fairbanks and watch you throw water in the air that's boiling to make it go pop."
Yeah, it's cold.
You guys get real bored up there during the winter. I know this.
Yeah, there's definitely, on the more serious side, there is a very high level of suicide and depression, especially in the villages. And it has to do with lack of sunlight and being locked in. And, you know, people joke about cabin fever, but it really is something that people deal with up here. And, you know, you have to be creative. It's much easier for people who like to get out and snow machine and snowshoe and ski and trap and some of those things. It's a little bit easier. You just have to find a way to kind of be positive and get through it, because, you know, Alaska really does have a lot to offer. It is beautiful. The summers are great. We just love the freedom we have we have a lot of ability to go to different areas. There's a lot of state lands that you can just go use, and you use it respectfully, and there's no issues with enjoying it. So it doesn't have all the regulations and rules of a lot of other places. So, you know, you kind of have to decide if you're willing to survive with long winters for the benefit.
So have you ever given it any...
excuse me.
Well, I was just going to ask if she's ever given it any thought, if she ever gets just absolutely fed up with those long winters. Does she have someplace kind of picked out that she'd like to go to?
Yeah, my husband and I have talked about it. So we've talked about, my husband was born and raised in Oregon, and when we got married, he started taking me on trips down there, and it's just gorgeous. I just love, it's just so nice and warm, and you got the beach, you got the mountains. So, you know, that's something we've talked about, maybe becoming snowbirds at some point when he can retire. And, you know, going to a place like that. We've got his family down there that we're close to. And, you know, so that's always an option of, you know, maybe spending our summers up here and getting out for the winters. A lot of people do that.
That's cool. Now, I just had a question pop up on the chat, Bethany. John White asked this: would you come to either the I&I event or Detecting the Heartland event here in the Midwest and hang out?
Or given any thought to attending events?
Yeah.
I have. I would actually love to go to some of those events. We're just right now starting to do more traveling with our detecting and our relic hunting. The whole trip to the UK was kind of a spontaneous trip. My husband bought it, and it was an anniversary gift for us, and really opened my eyes to how much I love traveling and just seeing history, relic hunting in other places. So I would like to start traveling a lot more, you know, as I can, and meeting more people, getting around to different events like that.
Nice.
Cool. Now, well, if you end up in Portland, then you're only about 1,700 miles away. How long, I got a question for you. You flew out of Anchorage, I'm sure. How long from Anchorage? And I imagine you flew into Heathrow in London. How long did that take you?
Well, we had to go, we had a layover in Seattle, a layover in Minneapolis, and it took us, it was around 22 hours, I think, total with layovers and travel.
Okay, that's not quite as bad. Sometimes those layovers, I was figuring maybe a day plus. I know when I leave here, I'll fly Chicago and hop Alaska Air and be up to Anchorage, and generally I spend the night in Anchorage, and then I hop on over to Nome, because I go to Nome an awful lot. And that extends it a little bit, but I feel much better getting off the plane in Nome after 6.5, 7 hours sleep than being at the Anchorage airport till Flight 52A hops out and goes to Nome on Alaska Air in the morning, or, you know, you've been up all night. So generally I try to plan it so I have a bit of a layover. I run downtown to Anchorage. Now they changed the name of the place, but I always used to go out to eat the snow goose and look at the harbor and have fresh crab. That's a treat there.
Yeah, the jet lag, we had no idea how much of a real thing that was until our trip to the UK. We definitely weren't really prepared for that. And, you know, we'd never traveled on the tube before, and we didn't understand the train system at all. So when we got there, we probably should have gotten a taxi, but we had no idea. And we had everything except for the kitchen sink in our luggage. We both had large carry-ons, and we both had 2 large rolling suitcases because we had our detectors and we had, you know, everything we needed for a month over there. And so here we are trying to find our way. We're going from one train to another train, up and down stairs, dragging this luggage. And I think it took us probably an hour and a half to get from the airport to where we were staying. It was just insanity.
There you go. Now, the first time I traveled there, I went and I rented a car. Now, I drove around the parking lot at the car rental place, getting used to sitting on the wrong side and turning and doing that, and then jumped out on their version of an interstate, and that was a bit of a culture shock. But once I got used to it, I only scared a few Englanders and my wife quite a bit.
Yeah, we said, well, you know, next time we go back, maybe we'll do something like that, just so we have a little bit more freedom and access to kind of go do what we want to do. But, you know, we figured it out, and we learned after a while how to get around, and it wasn't too bad.
There you go.
We
and
really
if you ever get the chance, go do a detective ball over there. That's an interesting gathering of detectors, let me tell you. And you get to hunt these fields and go out with them, and they're there, and it was a lot of fun. But the way they set that up, they literally have a small city set up of all the detector companies and all the salespeople and all the food vendors, and people gather around, and they like to unveil detectors at this, and that's a hoot. That if you get a chance to do that, Bethany, I'd recommend that to you. You want to go back to England, hook up to a detective ball.
Yeah, I would like to do that. I was talking with Dawn, Digger Dawn. She's another one with a great YouTube channel, and we got to meet up with her one day when we were there in Shropshire. She drove down to meet up with our group, and it was actually a very ill-fated trip because ended up with the first snow they had in forever. And of course they blame the Alaskans for
right. You brought it with you.
You brought it with you.
You know, we totally got snowed out. I think I got to detect with her for maybe an hour or two. And I know she's, you know, told me they've got some great detectables going back, and I'd like to go back and actually spend some time hanging out with her because we got it cut short. But there's just too many things I want to do. Not enough time and not enough money yet.
I understand, believe me. But it's been nice talking to you. I had just a couple questions for you there, and Alaska is a great state if you can stand the winter, and great people up there. I've always enjoyed my time up there, and enjoy the Nome. Nome is on the edge. Nome is really a true last piece of frontier. I mean, it's still gold mining. It's still you're fishing and trapping and everything, and I love that portion of it, and getting out in the country around up in there. And for a relic hunter like you, Nome would be, you need to go over there and do a little checking around, because I'm here to tell you that's amazing what you see there and pick up and get a look through. There's cabins that stand from the first gold rush up there yet. There's a couple of them up in the hills. Everybody in the area tended to agree to leave them as they were as best they can, you walk it, you step in there, and literally they walked away from it. They left everything behind, and it's still sitting there from 1910.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff, and there's a lot of relics to be found in a lot of places like that. But one of the things that a lot of people don't realize too is there's a lot of Alaskan Native land here in Alaska,
Yes.
and that is absolutely off limits. Like, we are not allowed to be on it or carry a detector on it or anything unless we were to get tribal permission, and it's pretty much
That's right.
impossible to do.
I have sat in getting permission for right away to go out to gold claims, and that can be a long drawn out affair. And the tribes up there have incorporated. They've
Yes.
sent their kids to Harvard and Yale, and they've made them in corporations, and they're pretty sharp in what they do.
Yeah, I mean, even just trying to get permission to do like a trespass crossing, it's going to be, $600 or $700, and there's a limited amount of time. And
Yep.
it's just not something that I'm willing to try to go down that road right now. There's so many other options for us. So that's kind of the issue with places like Nome and a lot of villages is
Yep.
you have so
You
much.
got to know
native land
somebody
is
too.
lost.
That's the whole thing. They're very tight knit, and they're a little bit mistrusting anyway, rightly so, and from past experiences. And they like I said, they've incorporated their lands. They are a government, an entity upon themselves, and if you want to go there, you got to go under their terms and expenses.
Yeah, definitely. So that's something we've just decided we're going to avoid. It's just not worth the headache for us to figure that
You
out,
know.
especially when you have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of acres that's state land that you can enjoy, and
Mhm.
just so many other options without us having to try to go down that direction,
And I've left the relics alone, and the bottles, I found bottle dumps. I mean, literally, I'm after gold when I'm there, so, and working that side of it, I enjoy that very much, and detect the old tailings piles and things like that. But we were detecting about 21 miles from the camp, which put us 30 miles out on just at the base, well, even more than that, on the Ruby River. And the gentleman with me where they had done the dredging, he's going along, he's got a deep signal, he's moving rock. There's no dirt up there, it's all rock. And I swear, and he came up with a 1910 pocket watch, silver, and out of that rock, that watch bezel was not broken.
Wow.
It was gorgeous.
Amazing.
You never
So-
know what you're going to find,
No,
and
you
that's
don't.
the cool thing. That's just like so many times the surprise, and we found it just things that we don't even know what they are when we first dig them out of, especially bottle dumps up here. It's crazy because you'll find pockets of liquor bottles and soda bottles, and you're kind of digging through it, and then something will fall out. And I think it was last summer or the summer before, we had found a riverbank bottle dump that was from 1930s, 40s, 50s era.
Mm-hmm.
And we were digging through. We found like a little pocket of trash that was looked like it was maybe a doctor. It had some old glass syringes and vials and just all
Wow.
kinds of stuff. And then in the midst of this, something comes rolling out, and we were kind of in like a pile of kitchen stuff. And so, we kind of just let it roll down, and because it looked like a plug for a sink or something. And I was like, hey, what is that? And Jeremy was like, oh, I don't know. I just think it's trash or something. And then as it rolled down the hill, I saw it looked kind of almost like gold. And so I went and picked it up, and I was like, what is this? It's shiny. And so it was totally encased in just this rust clump, and all you could see was almost looked like a little gold flower on something. And so he laughs at me because I'm always taking stuff home, and he's like, "That's junk. What are you doing?" And I'm like, "You never know. You never know. We got to clean it up." And so I stuck it in my pouch, and I took it home, and we used citric acid soak to get rid of rust. And come 3 days later, after it's been soaking, it is this beautiful it's either brass or bronze, and it's an elephant claw bell from India.
Very nice.
Nice.
And it's like, what is this doing? Looked it up. It's approximately 1930. You can actually see it says India on it, and it's just ornate. And I put some pictures on our page and stuff. People can go look at it. But it's just this beautiful elephant bell, and you wonder, what is the story behind this? That here in the middle of nowhere, Alaska, in this bottle dump with all of this stuff, how did this elephant bell from India just show up here?
Well, and that's one that ought to get the listeners going, because I'm sure there's a few listening that they're not familiar with what an elephant bell is, but those things are cool to see.
That's
well,
so
I
neat.
didn't even know what it was. It took me, forever to Google. At first I was like, what is this thing? It's like a weird plug. And then I started looking online up some sort of bell and look it up. And I guess they would have a whole bunch of them on a string, and they would wear them around the elephant's neck. So when they were walking down the paths, that pedestrians could hear they were coming.
Yep, and they were definitely a unique design, having like a cage shape.
Yeah, it was just something I'd never seen before. I mean, and this one was just ornate with flower designs and beautiful. So
that's cool.
Yeah,
that
was one of those.
That's very cool. Well, Bethany, I'll have to check your YouTube out, and hopefully we cross paths. Maybe we'll meet up in England. I'm supposed to be going back this fall again. I'm hoping to get to, if they open things back up and we can still travel about. And I was supposed to be in Alaska in July, but I don't think that's probably going to happen now. So great travels to you. Good luck, and nice talking with you. Thanks, Josh. You guys all have a good night.
All right. Thanks for the call, Chuck.
Thanks, buddy. Bye-bye.
Well, the story about the elephant bell, that was just awesome, because you don't see those show up very often here in the U.S., it seems like.
Yeah, there's things like that every once in a while we just, I posted some pictures, I think it was earlier today, of another find we had like that. And we were digging in another location. It was 40s and 50s, I think. And just in a bottle dump, we kind of meticulously pull it apart a little bit at a time and look through. And we ran across this. We didn't know what it was at first. We could see it looked like it was silver, and it had a little spur on it. And once we got it home and cleaned it up, it's just this gorgeous silver spur tie clasp. And
that is awesome.
Researched it. It's from 1930. It came from Texas. And some of these that were identical, there was a limited number made, and some of these were actually presented to people like the president back in 1930. So kind of and you just, on top of it is like a soda bottle from 1950. And you're thinking, how did we find this?
Right, sometimes when we run across these finds, it almost leaves us with more questions than answers, because we're thinking, how does something like this get here?
Yeah, for sure. And you wonder about the story behind it.
Absolutely.
You try to put it together. It's a couple years ago, we ran across this site, and we actually didn't run across it. We had researched for a long time, And we knew there had been some sort of railroad camp and possibly a station there at some point, but then, the lines had been moved, so it was just out in the middle of nowhere. And took us a while of detecting to find it, and it ended up being this huge site. And I think there was a lot more than just a railroad station there, because when we first started, on one side, way up on this hill, we found some really old stuff. We found I think it was 1913 skull pan trap. It's like a number 1 for trapping animals, and it's kind of a rare trap. It's more of like a collector's. And so we found this really rare trap. And then in that area, we found a lot of like old horse tack and bridle pieces and an old metal curry comb. And in the midst of all that, we found this very ornate bed frame, this metal brass bed frame. And I think, what is this? And you're like, what's the story behind this? And then, a few hundred yards away, you go down this hill, and we found this area that we're pretty sure was maybe a burned out blacksmith shop. And we did a couple videos on our YouTube about what we found in this area, because it was the largest amount of tools that we have ever found. And we could not believe, you could almost like take a line and see where the edge of this building had been. It was very distinct, but everything that had a wood handle, the wood was burned off. There was charred leftover bits next to it. You could tell it looked like it had burned down. But we found over, I think it was 24 files. We found horseshoes, lots of nails, hammers, anvil pieces, wrenches, just all sorts of tools. We could not believe it. Pieces for like a Model T Ford, like the metal part of the wheel, the wood was gone. Just crazy stuff like that. And so that was a couple days of digging to get that cleared out. And then
wow,
another, I don't know, maybe 500 feet further away from that, way down by a swamp, we found one of the largest bottle dumps that we've ever found.
Wow. So you guys really, truly never know what you're going to run across.
Yeah, you don't. And that's the thing. It's just, so, that bottle dump, that huge bottle dump, we spent 3 summers working on that. It's still not dug out. And we found things from the 1950s, and we have found a couple really old pockets of like possibly late 1800s, definitely early 1900s corktop bottles. And
nice.
so it's in the midst of this dump, which is mostly World War II, we found some cool pieces of newspaper left that you could read talking about the war. And then in the midst, you dig down 3 feet, and it's almost like it was a bag of trash. It is really old. And so you just don't know. It's just, that's the fun of it.
Wow. Definitely. Well, it truly is an adventure for you guys then. Obviously up there in Alaska, it's no big secret. We're not exactly the top of the food chain up there. Have you and your husband had any kind of harrowing wildlife encounters while you've been out on your adventures?
Not really anything scary. We have seen some bears, and we did a couple drop-offs. Alaska is one of the few places left that has what they call flag stops on the train. Mm-hmm. So you buy a ticket to the location you want to go somewhere along the line, and you tell them when you want to be picked up, and they stop and drop you off. And then when you're ready to go, you come back out, and you know what time the train's going to come by, and you sit, and they stop and pick you up. And so it's kind of fun. We've done 2 trips that way where we had them take us out and drop us off. And you definitely deal with more wildlife once you get out there. We had, my husband laughs at me because I have this thing of documenting all the bear sign that we see. So he's like, really, you're taking more pictures of bear scat? I'm like, hey, this is number 25 for the day. So he laughs at me, but, we've had times where we see a lot. We usually take our dogs with us, and they bark if something comes up at night while we're in the tent. So it's, just respect them. One of our drop-off trips, we had, we found some bear tracks that had come in kind of close to our camp the one time, but it had gone around. So I'm sure that's what the dogs were barking at. And we had seen a couple black bear, just small ones across the river from where we were at. So,
well, that's
they're
good.
out there,
Hopefully it stays that way and they don't get too scary.
Yeah, well, things can always happen. We try to stay on top of it and make a lot of noise when we're going through the brush. And we like to take our dogs with us when we're out because we know that they'll warn us if there's something around.
Right. And I guess we have been on here for quite some time already, but one more question would be about what is the average length of time for your hunting season up there that you can actually get out and detect and do the bottle dump digging and stuff like that?
Well, it kind of varies depending upon the season. This year, we're having a really late breakup. We had a lot of snow this year, and so it's just going to be a lot longer till thaw, which is kind of frustrating.
Right.
Last year by this time, our snow was all gone last year by this time. This year we still have a few feet in most areas. It's starting to melt. But, we've kind of documented when we can finally get through the ground and dig is usually towards the end of May. So we always try to push it and try to get out at the beginning of May and do stuff. But depending upon the year, we're looking at, May through September or October. That's about it.
Wow. Well, I certainly feel your pain there, and definitely wish you a quick thaw so you and your husband can get back to what you do.
Yeah, thank you. We're pulling for spring.
Right, yeah, exactly. I'm all for that here, too, definitely. But before we get out of here, I would like to say it has been an absolute pleasure speaking with you tonight, but figured I'd give you a couple of minutes, just give you the floor, and you got anybody you want to give a shout out to or let people know where to find you, feel free.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate you having us on. It's been a lot of fun. And, we just love talking with people about relic hunting and detecting and all that. And so please, love to have people look us up on Facebook and also our YouTube channel. I'm working right now on making a wind chime with some of the relics that I've dug, and I'm trying to do a little video to get out since we're still frozen in. I'm going to try to, in the next week or two, maybe put a YouTube video out just showing how I repurpose some of the relics into wind chimes. So hopefully something like that will be coming out soon. And, we appreciate everybody following us, and we've had a lot of people that have invited us to go detecting with them. And we just really appreciate it. A lot of people are really open, and we just love the invitations, and everybody's just been so welcoming. We really had a lot of great contacts with people, especially in the UK when we went over there. Just really nice people willing to take us places and show us some really cool stuff. And I know that, I think in general, most people that are into relic hunting are pretty open about wanting to share with you and show you cool things. And so we really appreciated that.
Nice. Very nice. And speaking of welcoming, the listeners, it looks like, have certainly enjoyed what you've had to share tonight, so we may have to reach out to you again in the future and have you back on.
Well, I would love to do that. It was great to talk to you and share some of our fun experiences.
Yes, definitely. Hang in there with me for a few minutes and we'll go ahead and get on out of here then. So for everyone else, obviously, Bethany from Alaska Relic Hunters on YouTube. Make sure and check it out. The link is in the description. It's also in the chat. And while you're in there checking out the links, check out our other links. We've got links for Spreaker in there, Shooters and Prospectors, Team USA, Ohio Metal Detecting, Crazy Spider Adventures, Detected Outdoors, All Metal Militia, Extreme Scoops, DETECTEES.com, which that hoodie is still being very well put to use here tonight with the chill in the studio. And I think that, the Simplex raffle, if you're looking for tickets, there's only a few more days left. I do believe that we mentioned on Sunday's show that the cutoff date is the 23rd. So only a few more days left of that. Also, you Simplex users, keep an eye out. There is a new update coming up for the Simplex. Sounds like it's going to give a user customized mode and maybe even some extra depth. We'll see. But for everyone else, if you enjoyed the show, make sure and throw us a like. You can follow us right here on Spreaker, Beyond Sight and Sound on Facebook, iHeart, iTunes, many of the other wonderful podcast distribution services, including Ohio Metal Detecting on YouTube. If you're over there checking out Alaska Relic Hunters anyway, check out Ohio Metal Detecting too. We gotta roll, folks, but it's been a wonderful evening talking with Bethany. We certainly appreciate her for joining us tonight, and looking forward to speaking with her for a few minutes here after the show. Have a wonderful evening, folks. We're gonna roll the music.